Good evening, my dear friends, and welcome to Wednesday evening's webinar on Doves for Peace. And this evening I am standing in for our presenter Richard, who was to talk from experience on the life of Saint Therese of Lisieux. But due to some internet PC laptop problems, Richard was unable to go live this evening, so hence me. We shall talk about Saint Therese of Lisieux in a second, but first let us just relax, just gather our thoughts. We may have had a stressful day, we may be feeling a little harassed, so let us just be mindful of our in-breath and our out-breath, and invoke the patronage and the love of Saint Therese of Lisieux. So let us just be still for a moment. And in that stillness, I would like to show you a very old picture that I've had for years of Saint Therese of Lisieux. This is who we're talking about this evening. Saint Therese of Lisieux, the Carmelite nun. A beautiful picture. And we will be looking at it again shortly in the live webinar. But first, just a little background on Saint Therese of Lisieux. I first came into contact with her as a young novice back in 1966 when I was a young student nursing monk in Cove, County Cork. We were told to read one of the amazing little books, The Journey of a Soul, the life of Saint Therese of Lisieux. Here I'm going to read from some of my notes, if I may, because there's so many fascinating points to this young saint's life. Therese has been a highly influential model of sanctity for Catholics and for others because of the simplicity and practicality of her approach to the spiritual life. Together with Saint Francis of Assisi, she is one of the most popular saints in the history of the Church. And interestingly, Pope Pius X called her the greatest saint of modern times. Therese felt at an early age the call to religious life, and overcoming various obstacles, in 1888, at the early age of 15, she became a nun, and she joined two of her elder sisters in the cloistered community of Carmel at Lisieux in Normandy. After 9 years as a Carmelite religious, having fulfilled various offices such as sacristan and assistant to the novice mistress, and having spent her last 18 months in Carmel in a night of faith, she died of tuberculosis at the young age of 24. Her feast day is October the 1st, and Therese is well known throughout the world, with the Basilica of Lisieux being the second largest place of pilgrimage in France after Lourdes. And now for a little bit of information. Generations of Catholics have admired this young saint, called her the Little Flower, and found in her short life more inspiration for their own lives than in volumes by theologians. Yet Therese died when she was 24, after having lived as a cloistered Carmelite for less than 10 years. She never went on the missions, she never founded a religious order, she never performed great works. The only book of hers published after her death was a brief edited version of her journal called The Story of a Soul. Collections of her letters and restored versions of her journals have been published recently, but within 28 years of her death, the public demand was so great that she was canonized. Over the years, some modern Catholics have turned away from her because they associate her with over-sentimentalized piety. And yet the message she has for us is still as compelling and simple as it was almost a century ago. Therese was born in France in the year 1873. The pampered daughter of a mother who had wanted to be a saint and a father who wanted to be a monk. Wow. The two had gotten married but determined that they would be celibate until a priest told them that it was not how God wanted a marriage to work. They must have followed his advice very well because they had 9 children. The 5 children who lived were all daughters who were close all their lives. Tragedy and loss came quickly to Therese when her mother died of breast cancer when she was 4.5 years old. Her 16-year-old sister Pauline became her second mother, which made the second loss even worse when Pauline herself entered the Carmelite convent 5 years later. And a few months later, Therese became so ill with a fever that people thought she was dying. The worst part of it for Therese was all the people sitting around her bed staring at her, like she said, a string of onions. They're her words, not mine. But when Therese saw her sisters praying to a statue of Mary in her room, Therese also prayed. She saw Mary smile at her, and suddenly she was cured. She tried to keep the grace of the cure secret, but people found out and badgered her with questions about Mary, about what she was wearing, what she looked like. And when she refused to give in to their curiosity, they passed the story that she had made the whole thing up. And that must have been hard for her. Without realizing it, by the time she was 11 years old, she had developed the habit of mental prayer at a young age. She would find a place between her bed and the wall, and in the solitude think about God, life, and eternity. When her other sisters, Marie and Leonie, left to join religious orders, the Carmelite and Poor Clares respectively, Therese was left alone with her last sister Celine and her father. Therese tells us that she wanted to be good, but that she had an odd way of going about it. This spoiled little queen of her father's wouldn't do housework. She thought if she made the bed, she was going to do a great favor. Every time Therese even imagined that someone was criticizing her or didn't appreciate her, she burst into tears. Then she would cry because she had cried. Any inner wall she built to contain her wild emotions crumbled immediately before the tiniest comment. A sensitive soul. A sensitive soul. When her other sisters, Therese wanted to enter the Carmelite convent to join Pauline and Marie. But how could she convince others that she could handle the rigors of the Carmelite life if she couldn't handle her own emotional outbursts? She had prayed that Jesus would help her there, but there was no answer. But on Christmas Day in 1886, the 14-year-old hurried home from church. In France, young children left their shoes by the hearth at Christmas, and then parents would fill them with gifts. By 14, most children outgrew this custom, but her sister Celine didn't want Theresa to grow up, so they continued to leave presents in baby Theresa's shoes. As she and Celine climbed the stairs to take off their hats, their father's voice rose up from a parlour below. Standing over the shoes, he sighed, "Thank goodness that's the last time we shall have this kind of thing." How must she have felt? I know I would have sulked, but there again, I believed in Santa Claus till I was 13. How naive. Theresa froze and her sister looked at her helplessly. Celine knew that in a few minutes Theresa would be in tears over what her father had said. But the tantrum never came. Something incredible happened to Theresa. Jesus had come into her heart and done what she could not do herself. He had made her more sensitive to her father's feelings than her own. She swallowed her tears, walked slowly down the stairs, and exclaimed over the gifts in the shoes as if she had never heard a word her father said. The following year she entered the convent, and in her autobiography she referred to this Christmas as her conversion. Theresa be known as the little flower, but she had a will of steel. And when the superior of the Carmelite convent refused to take Theresa because she was so young, the formerly shy little girl went to the bishop, and when the bishop also said no, she decided to go over his head as well. So clearly she was a determined little girl. But the Vicar General, who had seen her courage, was impressed, and soon Theresa was admitted to the Carmelite convent that her sisters Pauline and Marie had already joined. Her romantic ideas of convent life and suffering soon met up with reality in a way that she had never expected. Her father had suffered a series of strokes that left him affected not only physically but mentally. And when he began hallucinating and grabbed for a gun as if going into battle, he was taken to an asylum for the insane. Horrified, Theresa learned of the humiliation of the father she adored and admired, and of the gossip and the pity of their so-called friends. As a cloistered nun, she couldn't even visit her father. So can you imagine what she must have been going through? Not easy. This began a horrible time of suffering when she experienced such dryness in prayer that she stated in her own words, "Jesus isn't doing much to keep the conversation going." She was so grief-stricken that she often fell asleep in prayer. She consoled herself by saying that mothers love children when they lie asleep in the arms, so that God must love her when she slept during prayer. She knew as a Carmelite nun she would never be able to perform great deeds. Love proves itself by deeds. So how am I to show my love? Great deeds are forbidden me. She says the only way I can prove my love is by scattering flowers, and these flowers are every little sacrifice, every glance and word, and the doing of the least actions for love. She took every chance to sacrifice, no matter how small it would seem. She smiled at the sisters she didn't like, and apparently in their community there were many old, cantankerous, crabbed old women. Oh yes, that really did get on her nerves, as in any family. Therese continued to worry about how she could achieve holiness in the life she led. She didn't want to be just so good. She wanted to be a saint at such an early age. She thought there must be a way for people living hidden little lives like hers. Wow. But Teresa had the extraordinary ability, despite suffering from severe bouts of depression, she had the enormous gift in that smile. She had a childlike trust and simplicity. And like Francis of Assisi, by doing the little things, the awkward things, the things that most people don't want to do, like washing up, mopping the floor, attending a difficult member of the community, and being nice, and by meaning every word you say. She must have struggled on every level at such a young age, but she had an incredible relationship with God, as was manifested in how she lived her life and how she bore her suffering. So we are blessed indeed to be just cracking the top of the ice cap, because there's more to come. But interestingly, with little Therese, let her talk to you now. Let her speak to your heart. Because when it came to that time when she developed tuberculosis, she didn't tell anybody. Even though coughing up blood, she tried to play it down. Unlike some in society today, we call them drama queens. They make a mountain out of a molehill. But little Therese carried this great burden with a smile. And it wasn't until just after her death that her own sisters realized that here we have someone who's very special to God. So what is your heart saying to you about this incredible young woman? Well, let me introduce you again to the beautiful picture, because it speaks to you. It speaks to me every time I come into the office and I sit here. Just focus on the eyes and that gentle smile. This is little Therese of Lisieux. Just hold that image in your mind's eye. And with every in-breath that you take, invite Therese to come to you now. Invite her to join you now in a guided meditation. Just be still and hold that picture of little Therese in your mind. And now let us make ourselves comfortable and be still in the presence of God. And let us embrace the essence of childlike simplicity. As we breathe in the very breath of God. And in that out-breath, we release any fears, any tantrums, any sadness. And I want you to imagine that where you are now, just imagine that you've come to the convent, to the cloister, to meet with little Therese. Just imagine the sisters allowing you in. You ring the doorbell and you can tell it's an old monastery because there's an echo that symbolizes many long corridors. So just imagine you press this brass dial, and in the distance you can hear a bell ringing. And then a few minutes later, one of the extern sisters comes to the door and asks how they can help you. And you said you've come to see the shrine, the special place where Saint Therese of Lisieux is buried. And the sister says, of course, come in. And you walk along the cloister, and as you're walking along you see the courtyard, and in the center there's a beautiful statue of Our Lady looking up to heaven. And it's as if you're walking for quite some time, but then you come to a room, and it's like a small annex, and Sister opens this door, and it leads you in to this beautiful chapel of the sisters. And there before you, when you look up at the altar, there's a glass coffin. And Sister allows you go up to the coffin and kneel there. And you see this young girl, just 24 years old, in the Carmelite habit, the brown habit, but with the white cape or choir mantle. And she's wearing her veil. And it's an image of serenity. She's lay there, totally transfixed in the presence of God. And something's happening for you. You decide to kneel by this glass coffin. It's drawing your heart. You feel a sense of closeness. There's a presence, and that presence is touching you. And as you gaze at the image of Therese behind the glass paneling, when you breathe in, you can sense the strong smell of the most beautiful roses, exquisite roses. And you feel a hand on your back, a gentle hand, just touching you between the shoulder blades. And you're not alone. And as you turn round, there you see Saint Therese. This is who you see. She's come to offer you support from Spirit. She's come to walk with you as a pilgrim on your journey and to make sense of your life, the disappointments, the frustrations. She knows that you've gone to great effort to get here, and now she wants to walk with you, to be with you, and asks you to be still. And in that stillness, she asks you just to be aware that you too are called to holiness, like she was. You too are called to surrender your heart to a loving Father, Mother God. And she's willing to show you the way if you are willing to trust your heart. And she's here, she's guiding you, supporting you. She wants to mentor you on the path, that narrow path, with its twists and turns, its knocks, its upsets, its disappointments. but she reminds you that man's disappointment today is God's appointment for your tomorrow. She asks you to have courage. And even though she, Therese of Lisieux, experienced the dark night of the soul many, many times, she realized much later on that it was then that her Jesus was closest to her, but she felt that he'd gone away and left her. So could it be in this dryness that you and I both feel that our God is truly present? Be still now. Be still and know that you are loved. And we conclude by sharing with you some of the prayers to Saint Therese of Lisieux or Saint Therese of the Child Jesus. O little Therese of the Child Jesus, please pick a rose for me from the heavenly garden and send it to me as a message of love. O little flower of Jesus, ask God today to grant the favors I now place with confidence in your hands. And here you will mention your request. So take your time now and mention your request to Saint Therese of Lisieux. And then we say, Saint Teresa, help me to always believe as you did in God's great love for me, so that I may imitate your little way each day. Amen. And we have another beautiful prayer called the Miraculous Invocation to Saint Teresa. O glorious Saint Teresa, whom Almighty God has raised up to aid and inspire the human family, I implore your miraculous intercession. You are so powerful in obtaining every need of body and spirit from the heart of God. Holy Mother Church proclaims you prodigy of miracles, the greatest saint of modern times. Now I fervently beseech you to answer my petition, and hear you mention your petition again, and to carry out your promises of spending heaven doing good on earth, of letting fall from heaven a shower of roses. Little flower, give me your childlike faith to see the face of God in the people and experiences of my life, and to love God with full confidence. Saint Therese, my Carmelite sister, I will fulfill your plea to be made known everywhere, and I will continue to lead others to Jesus through you. Amen. And finally, the prayer to Saint Therese of Lisieux for guidance. Govern by all thy wisdom, O Lord, so that my soul may always be serving thee as thou dost will, and not as I may choose. Do not punish me, I beseech thee, by granting that which I ask, if it offended thy love, which would always live in me. Let me die to myself so that I may love thee. Let me live to thee who art in thyself the true life. Dear Saint Therese, guide me in your little way, so that I may ascend to the highest happiness